My name is Andreea, and I'm the chairman of Opt-in for Privacy, a Copenhagen-based cute little NGO that organizes offline meetings for people to kind of connect and talk about the relationship between big data and society. And lately what I've been concerning myself with personally was hate speech, and whether to regulate it or not, whether to let the internet go free flow or actually take a stance against hate speech. And I think the basic question that I'm trying to figure out today is how to stop the spread of online hate speech while keeping free speech still on the internet. And now I'm going to start with an imagination exercise, and then I'm going to be talking about two pieces of legislation that touch on hate speech, online hate speech. Then I'm going to point out some problems, the way I see them, and I'm going to try and come up with some solutions. So first comes first, exercise. Whoa-hoo. I'm pretty sure maybe most of you aware of this comparison between people as being little islands. And now imagine all of these people are islands, and they communicate between them by sending little messages in a bottle. Hey, how are you? Yeah, I'm good. And then another bottle goes back. Sometimes conversations are pretty chill. People just chat, but sometimes they get a bit heated up, and there might be disagreements or discontents. Nevertheless, still a conversation. Now, this was the situation for quite a years, maybe millennials ago. But lately, the background is starting to look a bit like this. This is influenced mostly because of new business models of the platforms where conversation takes place. People seem to be grouped according to perhaps colors they like or interests they have. And somehow the messages they receive are targeted to these criteria after which they grouped. It almost seems like these waters are having a life of their own in delivering the messages. Having common interests means that people might also be grouped by shared sensitivities they have. People, yet they care about common things, which means that these things are sensitive for them to approach. And if an angry message is correctly targeted, then these people might get pretty heated up. And being grouped together and agreeing with each other means that there is pretty high chance that forest fires start a lot faster and they spread a lot easier. Now, because humans are social human beings, they're subject to social pressure and they want to belong in groups they agree with, situation might escalate. And this message in a bottle might actually turn into a Molotov cocktail. So this is how, metaphorically, I see hate speech appearing online. Now, what is the state doing to regulate this phenomenon? I'm going to be talking just about two instances of legal frameworks, and is the SDG that was mentioned before as well, and the proposed revision on the Audiovisual Media Services Directive. Now, the NetzDG, the Germany law adopted this year, came as a has a declared reason of tackling hate speech because of the rise of refugees numbers in Germany and the crisis and the increase of right-wing content online. The proposal for a revised Audiovisual Media Services Directive concerns video content only and tries to tackle hate speech for the sake of children. And it's at EU level, it's not a national law. Now, two things, like one of the most relevant things that these two laws have in common is that they focus on content and they're self-regulatory. They let platforms regulate themselves. And enforcement on, under NetzDG, for example, is led to recognized bodies of regulated self-regulation. I repeat, recognized bodies of regulated self-regulation. Awesome. Now, there are some issues that I see with this approach. First of all, there's a change of status. The platforms are no longer the object of law, but they become the implementers of law. And that would be great if we'd live in a utopical world, but EU itself has some issues with implementing hate speech law across its different states. And this project that was commissioned by the European Commission points out at the huge disparities between national legislations of 10 investigated EU countries in regards with hate speech law. Now, surely, how can we hope that Facebook will find the right approach to this? I don't know. The other thing is the bias. A bias that, first of all, is economic, because it's a private actor that we're talking about. But then algorithms that Facebook is enforcing are meant to be neutralizing this human bias that everyone's so scared about when making judgments. A ProPublica investigation actually showed that the censorship rules that Facebook is applying are more likely to protect white men from hate speech, not black children. And when we ask an entity to be the implementer of a law, we kind of still have the expectation that it's a bias-free. I don't even have expectations here. It's pretty bluntly put. My approach to it is identifying the source, the root cause of hate speech. Is it angry messages? Is it perhaps the targeting strategy? Or is it the algorithms that enable this targeting strategy happen? According to this law, angry messages are what the core problem of hate speech. Well, I tend to disagree. Going back to anger that I spoke to before, it's really interesting to look at this particular study that identifies content based on anger as being more viral, because anger is an activating emotion. It makes people engage, click, share, do something about it. Now, if anger equals virality, and virality is, of course, data because of its trace, and votes because of its spread, can we make perhaps a connection? I can. Now, another thing is that mostly politicians don't put up hate speech out in the open. They're just angry because something must be stopped and we have to be tough. But targeted correctly, this message goes into something else. And this is from the comment section of the same post. Now, my suggestion is to check out how does this turn into this? How does anger turn into hate? How is targeting so effective that hate speech is at home online? First, we have to differentiate. We have to differentiate between marketing strategy and political advertising strategy. At the moment, Facebook refuses transparency around political advertising strategy because it's confidential information of these advertisers. It is competitively sensitive. And we try to have consistent policies across the board so that we're imposing similar requirements on everybody. That's so heartbreaking. Now, the reason why they're considered the same for Facebook is because if they wouldn't, strict EU regulation would actually apply on it. For example, in Ireland, it is completely prohibited to have political advertisement on TV during elections. Even broadcasting, which is non-paid display of political content, is prohibited the day before elections, the day before the voting starts at 2 p.m. until after the vote, so that voters have a moment of making up their minds. Now, until we are able to differentiate between these two different types, political advertisement strategy will be considered a corporate asset and will have immunity. But if such immunity disappears, then we can actually require transparency. And this is where things get exciting. Transparency, not on everything, because that's pretty impossible. Like, algorithms are still a corporate asset. Advertising strategies, marketing, corporate marketing is still an asset. But political advertisement wouldn't be an asset. And for starters, I just propose transparency around budget, around the basis of the targeting and the type of targeting. So this is how political campaign advertisement look like. There's a little button on the top right-hand corner which says, why am I seeing this? And then you'll get some explanation that you engage in politics and you're likely to be conservative, and the age group that you're part of, and some location that you're connected to. This is just 3 points of data, and they're really not enough because targeting, is of many, many types. And I'm gonna go pretty quickly through these types because they're complex, but if you want to check out more, this is the work of ShareLab. You can find them up online. So they identify 5 different types of targeting. The first one is just a basic one, gender, location, age. But then connections is also there, how the users react to my events, the apps I have, the pages I manage. Maybe I want to know if I'm being targeted based on demographics, such as my education level or the generation that I'm part of, the ethnical affiliation, the life events that I just had, my home constituency, relationships or work. Or maybe it's targeting based on the interests that I have. What about my online marketing my online marketing things that I'm interested, whether I'm rich or poor, my finances, the entertainment, what books do I like, what music, what films, wellness, the food and drinks that I love, or the hobbies that I have. I'd like to know if I'm targeted based on that. Or maybe I'm targeted based on my online behavior. They're targeting me because I'm an early tech adopter, or business owner, or pickup loader, or an expat, a traveler. Now, the reason I'm advocating for all this transparency is because I think that such a transparency would help scrutinize the relationship between the type of data that is being used and the way this data is being used. I think this is where the key lays, in understanding how certain data is used in certain ways, how anger turns into hate. Some data is sensitive by nature, like biometrical collected data. But some data becomes sensitive with certain uses. For example, if I'm being targeted by a political advertisement based on the fact that they know that I'm a parent and I upload a lot of pictures with my kids, and the message that I get is, immigrants are coming into your child's school. You have to stop this. Maybe I'll be a bit worried. But then maybe I get another message based on the fact that I'm a business owner, and they'll say, oh, immigrants will just open all these small businesses, and you got to make sure you take care. And I'll be a bit angry. And then they know that I'm traveling to some place, and they say, yeah, you know, there's a difference between low-cost traveling and nice holidays. All these expats, all these immigrants, they're going to make things a lot worse for you on your travels and holidays, pickpocketers. And then it kind of builds up. Now, what I find to be 3 important points of this presentation is that online hate speech is an outcome. Anger exists, is a human feeling, emotion. But hate speech online is an outcome. And it is the outcome of combining the viral nature of angry content with a platform that has a business model based on virality. Turning platforms into law implementers or filtering content, I don't think that's touching on the right buttons. Instead, we should be regulating the virality of anger, the relationship between data type and data use. And this can only be done if there is transparency around social media political campaign. This is just the opening of a discussion. I'm pretty sure I haven't found the way forward. But if you have any comments or questions, I'll be happy to listen. Thanks.
Wow. It was quite mind-numbing, flowing from one slide to another there. It was so much detail. Thank you very much. Is there any questions at all? Anybody would like to comment on the methods and techniques suggested to prevent hate speech? Excuse me. Just give your name, please.
Hi there, Shane McNamee. I was just wondering, do you think that there's much in the way of a possibility of the GDPR addressing some of the issues, addressing some of the potential risks here, or if also that it might be seen as a missed opportunity to maybe put in a little bit more control over this? I mean, that there are issues in it dealing with specifically with direct marketing, so it may give people some control over this. It may mitigate some of the problems, but do you think maybe more could have been done, or do you think that might come down the line further on?
Yeah. So the thing with GDPR is that it targets corporate actors. And in terms of public entities, it's up to national regulation whether these public entities will have to pay the fines or not. For example, in Denmark, I was just at a hackers camp last week, and there was a guy talking about the impact of GDPR on the taxation authority, and he said, oh, it's this and this and that, but actually we don't have to pay any fines if we don't comply. So then I just asked him, what's the incentive for you? Like, why do you even care about it? He said, oh, it's a public image thing. So it really depends on how national frameworks work around this. But we also organized a panel debate at that hackers camp around GDPR from a user's perspective. And one of the lawyers that was on the panel, Martin van Haller, he advocates for open source and all this, and he's saying that actually if you care about privacy, GDPR is not going to do much because it's just more bureaucracy, more paperwork to do, and you have to be really bad at it to get those fines. You don't get the 20 million euro fine like this. You have to ignore warnings and don't comply for 4 or 5 times and so on. So what he also mentioned is blockchain regulation, because he's also interested in this. And that's actually him pointing out that blockchain and decentralized networks like those can be only regulated by touching on that relationship type use of data, not on the collection of it. So, yeah, that's my thoughts.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? I just wanted to pose a question myself. I've noticed over the last couple of days that all the speakers have been referring, when they have been referring to social, to Facebook. But hate speech can be on any platform. And you were showing the targeting options for Facebook. Now, I know they're all par for the course, all have algorithms very similar. But how would you address things that go up on things like Twitter, which tends to go viral very quickly because it's only there for a very short time? So how would that change the process from Facebook, which can obviously linger a little longer?
Yeah. I mean, the reason I focused on Facebook is because they have a lot more access to data from third parties than Twitter has. They have a revenue model based on ads a lot stronger than Twitter. And also the type of content is different on Facebook. There's more words in a post allowed, right, than on Twitter. Actually, Twitter is pretty good at hate speech itself, and it has a much opener policy of freedom of speech. I think the same kind of approach could work there too, because it's not a solution for Facebook only. It is just simply whenever I see a political ad, I want to see the type of targeting that has been done, and I don't know, 50% of the data that has been used about me for that targeting. And there is a actual why am I seeing this button on Twitter ads too, not only on Facebook. So what I would like to see is that kind of thing on any sort of political advertisement, and then maybe we would also be able to kind of nudge ourselves out of our own biases, regardless on which platform we are.
Okay, just one more question. There are the public access channels like Google, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. They're all public access. Everybody can see those. But cases I've heard of at a previous Republica have been on WhatsApp, which is not a public access, but still a place to conform with hate speech, which is still owned by Facebook. There's no way of measuring that. There's no way of targeting. It's all personal, but it can be grouped, just like Facebook, just like Twitter. What would be the answer to targeting those type of people in private chats like WhatsApp?
Yeah. That is no longer social media.
Yeah.
That's technically private messaging. Now, the fact that Facebook uses data from those personal messages to target, that's a different thing. So perhaps it would be interesting to know that your WhatsApp message has been used in order to get a Facebook political ad.
That's what I was driving at, actually, was the targeting that they get from it. So.
Yeah, but I'm not sure that regulating what happens on WhatsApp would be a good idea in terms of freedom of speech, because it's a lot less public communication.
Very contrived, isn't it, this area? Very contrived. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much, Andreea. Really insightful and a great follow-up. I love learning more about hate speech. It's something that we all see and we all feel is somebody else's problem, and we all need to manage it. We all need to respond to it, and we all need to be a lot more effective about it. So thank you very much for bringing this to today's event. We're going to take a short break now, but that's the end of this session. Thank you.